Bentrovati, anche questa mattina abbiamo un nuovo ospite all'interno del panorama del nostro progetto. Si tratta di Guilherme Englert Corrêa Meyer, professore all'Università di UNISINOS a Porto Alegre in Brasile, che ci porta la sua esperienza di designer all'intersezione tra strategic design e speculative design, al servizio naturalmente del nostro tema principale che è l'investigazione dal punto di vista progettuale. Come al solito una piccola introduzione per situare il tema della conferenza all'interno del nostro panorama generale. Il titolo, lo vedete, Experimental Adventure as a Design Mood in the Anthropocene. La conferenza sarà in inglese ed è, cosa molto importante, sia un modo per conoscere il lavoro di Guilherme Meyer nell'intersezione tra speculative design e strategic design, ma anche la prima introduzione del workshop che lui stesso terrà qui in ISIA a Faenza da questo pomeriggio fino a sabato mattina e che vedrà poi l'esibizione finale, l'esposizione finale dei risultati nella mostra che apriremo sabato pomeriggio. Sono particolarmente contenta di avere il professor Meyer, che ringrazio moltissimo, qui da UNISINOS a portarci la sua esperienza, perché Images for the Future, Visualizing Climate Change, ormai avete diciamo, imparato a conoscerlo, è un'opportunità per riflettere sul tema del cambiamento climatico sia da un punto di vista teorico, di concetto, di riflessione, che da un punto di vista progettuale. L'idea di coniugare speculative design e strategic design è molto potente, perché se il design strategico si occupa di cercare soluzioni strategiche su scenari reali, lo speculative design si occupa invece di investigare, di mettere in crisi anche i nostri concetti e preconcetti su quello che conosciamo per permetterci di comprendere nuove prospettive. Quindi è particolarmente importante per noi poter ascoltare la proposta progettuale e di riflessione allo stesso tempo del professor Meyer, al quale lascio la parola ringraziandolo molto di essere qui con noi oggi.
Grazie, buongiorno. First of all, I have to say thank you, Valentina, very much for the invitation, and also all the people from ISIA and Faenza that are involved with this invitation. I know it's a huge effort bringing someone from a different country. Maybe it's even more tough bringing someone from Brazil. So I had to take something like 3 flights to arrive here. So thank you very much for everything. And also thank you for opening this space for us to think about design in these turbulent times. And I'm very excited to be here with you. So my idea is to present this lecture. I will speak for 4 or 5 minutes or something, maybe a little bit more, and then we can open this for discussion. So any kind of question will be very much welcome. So please feel very comfortable in elaborating these questions. As Valentina introduced me before, I am Guilherme Meyer. I am from Porto Alegre, which is a city with 1.5 million citizens, located in the very south of Brazil. My work is related to experimental practices in design and speculative and critical design. And my aim is try to work with design as a way to construct better worlds, in this specifically in the context of the Anthropocene. So this word Anthropocene, I'm going to refer several times during the conference. So I will start briefly presenting the university I came from, and then the graduate program I am associated with. This is just for the matter of contextualization. And as you probably don't know much about this Brazilian city and this Brazilian university, but also the idea is to open this space for future contribution and collaboration. So UNISINOS is a private Jesuitic university in southern Brazil. It was founded in 1969, and it's based in a humanistic tradition with a focus on innovation, sustainability, and regional development. Here's some numbers of our university. With 10,000 of students across undergraduate and graduate program, it is, I can say, is a recognized university in the national and international context and rankings, and is listed up among the better higher universities in Latin America. I work in this graduate program. I am heading this graduate program now. It was established in 2008 and stands as Brazil's pioneering and only graduate program with a specific concentration on strategic design. We offer both master's and doctoral degrees, and we work with a very unique comprehension of strategic design related to design projects within environments and social, cultural, and market contexts, understanding design as a critical, creative, and transformative practice. So we work with the concept of ecosystems, of languages, experiences, and communication. I know that your program here has a strong connection with the communication process, so we probably have some connections we can discuss later. And my specific work in this program consider design in the context of research as applied research, but it's a kind of applied research that is situated and involved. So it is not it is a form of considering design research not as a consultancy. So we are not fighting with the market, but we work with organizations. But so our focus is more related to new processes, or how to develop new processes, new processualities of design, instead of delivering things into the market. So this is a way to say that we work with a comprehension of technology as a kind of a non-neutral device. So we understand that technology has politics, and yes, so it is a way to say that strategic design has to do with multiplicity, with improvisation, with surprise, and the strategy depends on the differences. So this is how we consider design in this program and in my work. Still in this context of presenting the foundations where I came from, I am editor of this journal. I don't know if you heard about this one. The name is Strategic Design Research Journal. It is a peer review, open access, international publication, and is dedicated of course, of advancing scholarship and design processes and theories. It is indexed in Scopus, Google Scholar, ProQuest, so you are all very welcome to send contributions to our journal. So now I will really start my argumentation on this subject. Both the university, the program, myself, the journal operates in the context of Porto Alegre, is the city where I was born and live. It lies on the Guaíba Lake. You can see a little bit the idea of the lake here, but here you can see better. And the city became one of the recent manifestations of the Anthropocene. I know that you have been facing issues with the floods here in Faenza, and 2024, Porto Alegre was completely devastated by a flood. Hundreds of people lost their lives, lost their commodities, their identities, and are still struggling to live. So here's some images of how the city was affected by this particular flood. So when I close my eyes and calm my breathing to sharpen my senses and touch the situation involving me, of course, an atmosphere of crisis become evident. I think that all of us, if we do this exercise, we can see a scenario of devastation, suffering, and sordidness. But we can also see some spark of hope that flashes faintly somewhere. No one disagrees that things are out of control, to speak colloquially. The impact of the crisis on the design practices urges us to reflect on the need for transformations in the field. As we know, it is in the autonomy of confrontation that imagination receives the best attention. When crisis is everywhere, imagination awakens as hope. Allowing ourselves to be affected by the adversity of the crisis and potentially our imaginative spectrum is the preposition of design. Indeed, uninterrupted flow and unequivocal prediction confer processes that make design impossible. When we are working with the stability, the design process is unavailable. It is not unknown that the Anthropocene is the combination of a planetary dimension that human agency has assumed very recently. I don't know if you are familiar with the concept of Anthropocene, but it understands that geologically, human activity has been rapid and profoundly modifying the composition of the atmosphere. Such an impact will probably be present for millions of years into the future. Humans are affected by this dynamic, but they are part of it. Engage and cultivate its rhythm. Humans are both victim and villain. In the Anthropocene, humans are considered the masters of agency. I want to bring this idea that Anthropocene crisis is also a facet of conceptual analysis failure. Living in the crisis, we perceive the naivety of speaking out in categories like biology, politics, and technology as segregated space, something different. The COVID-19 crisis made clear that combating the virus simultaneously involved a biological problem, recommending, for instance, washing hands, but also geographical, like preventing travel between countries, and even political polarization, following vaccines recommendation based on adopted political affiliation. Here's the ex-Brazilian president. This multiple property that segregates disciplines cannot track it present in every contemporary crisis, not just COVID-19. Thus, the tendency to treat economical, ecological, and cultural crises is always incomplete or partial without reference to the other dimensions like social, technical, etc. This reading leads to epistemological skepticism. Distrust of what to do overshadows understanding. There's not enough understanding to mitigate the distrust. We find ourselves doubting whether the science can handle contemporary world challenges. This is something that happened a lot during the COVID-19. We discovered that science is not enough. Thus, in the contemporary crisis, we perceive ourselves amid a crisis about handling the crisis, a methodological crisis, so to speak. Although the Anthropocene marks us as a planetary force, we feel reduced. The crisis afflicts us in this kind of paradoxes. The crisis is in the environment, but also in ourselves, in the position we occupy or the way we relate to it. It is a failure equivalent to modern science, especially reminding us of science's practices' limit. As Stengers, the philosopher Stengers, said, the scientist invents a practice attributing authorship to themselves, not animated by intentions, but embodying authority. This embodied authority grants exclusive right to speak on nature, which denied to those without it. So if you are not scientists, you cannot speak about crisis. If a crisis is founded on rupture, as etymology indicates, we cannot consider crisis episodes via prescriptive intervention. Instead, we must unsettle disciplinary process and prior coherences. Revising design process stems not only from the field inventive essence, but also from the crisis atmosphere enveloping and contaminating it. Changing practices involve rupture. Change is constitute of everyday experience. Anthropology teaches us that all human practices and cultural traditions are subject to incessant change. Even essence can change. It is no exaggeration that the change aspect is present in any concept of dynamic, movement, relation. It is the foundation of the concept of process. In design, as you can see in this image, the concept of change can gain even greater importance. For Nelson and Storderman, change has multiple layers of meaning, significance, and consequences. They call this image here, this dynamic here, the hierarchy of change. So change is difference, change of difference is process, change of process is evolution, change of evolution is design. Design, in a sense, can be thought of a practice of changing, committed to changing change, tensioning the very idea of change. See that change and crisis can be analog. Crisis means decision, refers to deviation, rupturing. Change and heterogeneity reveals more typical contemporary characteristics than stability, homogeneity, and harmony. Thus, it is not an inaugural concept that surprises us, but a typical, repeated, non-seen. But crisis stability is paradoxical. Crisis as harmony seem to be instigating. The anomaly inspiring the creation of other worlds is precisely the idea of stability, this idea of the stable crisis. The notion of a crisis stabilize, becoming an indistinct macro characteristic, invisible. So an ethnologist or an anthropologist knows that the familiar context become invisible, accentuating sensory difficulty. I don't know if you heard about the philosopher Sara Ahmed. She explains that the more the path is used, the more the path is used. So use leads to attenuating contrasts, enabling sensory experiencing, stimulating senselessness. To think of crisis as a stimulating concept requires recognizing stability as the contemporary anomaly. Sensibility means a disposition that the process assumes to be surprise. This superdisposition to be surprised must sharpen the designer's sensitivity to the anomalous. As suggested, designing contemporary crisis means recognizing stability as a surprising anomaly, challenging practices, or being surprised by the common. If I consider myself in the situation, rejecting pragmatic distanciation between the subject and the phenomena, if I allow myself to sense the familiar, transparent crisis, the framework becomes available for transformation. I become available for transformation, and the crisis can be touched. So what I suggest is that it's necessary to consider the position I occupy and the ideas I adopted, placing myself here in this exact moment, so I recognize that the situation prefigures the way I practice and think design. As I orient myself on one way or another, I access distinct realities. Involvement established with the assessed reality affects the experience I live. Thus, reality transits as intentions are discerned. I am the integrity established in the experienced situation. Donna Haraway helps think situation. In fact, she has a beautiful paper on the power of situation. She said, "No one lives everywhere. All live somewhere. Nothing is connected to everything. Everything is connected to something." Haraway and also the Brazilian philosopher Álvaro Vieira Pinto elucidate situation requires dialectical perception. Dialectical consciousness includes a designer without whom the situation is unrealizable. The situation can only be distinguished by the designer's intention. So design is intentionality. There is no design without intentionality. Intentionality requires recognizing myself in the situation. I am the situation. I transform the situation. The situation transforms me back. So it is important to consider this kind of positionality when we are operating in the field. The designer is not a distant subject waiting for receiving information and then act. The designer is the process of acting. So it is necessary to be recognized as someone that is part of the situation. So the situation is the crisis. We are the crisis. Okay. This idea of intention or intentionality stimulates adventure. And adventure requires an experimental posture. For Savransky, adventures involve exposure to possibility, even improbable, implausible, or coming event. Some uses suggest that adventure involve a challenging aspect associated with a dangerous journey. Adventures relate to risk, uncertainty, and imponderable challenge. Adventure is the very human condition. Vieira Pinto, the Brazilian philosopher I mentioned before, says, "Man is a being defined by adventure." Savransky calls of event this thing that can happen but cannot made to happen. So it is impossible to be explained by cause and effect. Event does not allow technical control or dominion over what is going to happen. Adventure is the antithesis of futurology. It is a reminder of how designer can be surprised within the process, of how unsettling frameworks and prior references are. So adventure is a way to unsettle things, to unsettle our references, to unsettle our notions of and values associated with things. As I mentioned, adventure require experimentation, which is experimentation, a disposition of modifying practices, producing new sensibilities, and allowing new reconfigurations. As Foucault explained, you are an experimenter, meaning doing something to change yourself and not thinking the same as before. Of course, this is not something easy to do, but this is the design essence, like producing things that will change the way you produce things, doing things that change the way you think, the way you are, the way you are positioned in the field. Cage said that experimentation begins when a parameter is broken, suspended, or transcendent. Thinking experimental practices from experimental posture pillars. Oh, this is related to a work I did with a colleague, with a student, and she leads the research, and she proposed here these pillars, which involved its experimental posture. It involves openness, incompleteness, revisability, particularity, and correspondence. This is we can call this a kind of a method on how to behave experimentally in the field. Okay. Sensitized by this posture, the designer incorporates what we can call an hesitation state. This trusting of good, bad, true, false, valid, invalid. An experimental designer prefers wait and see over a price structuring knowledge. Experimental posture stimulates liberation from defined structures and dogmas, requiring not knowing what will happen before it does. Hesitation is thus a condition for creative freedom, stimulating critique and original projection. If you can't hesitate, you are incapacitated for creative adventure. Conviction is the most penetrating creative cavalry. It is impossible to be creative if you are convicted. Experimental condition requires pondering. How to surprise myself in the process, how to dissociate myself from past references or future preconceptions. What questions will keep the project vulnerable? What rhythms and values does it require? What does nature sign? What to do when everything is possible? Designer legitimacy is not related to a vast accumulated knowledge repertory, but to the love conferred to the process. So Sophia, wisdom, nonsense plateau, concerns love to knowledge, not possession. So it is different, like loving knowledge or possession knowledge. So nothing is known, but the love for the process moves me. I defend that. I defend that the experimental adventure is the condition for dealing with the challenges of the Anthropocene. So I am naming here challenge in the sense of the word because it reminds us of stimulating but a threatening and complex problem. So I will propose here 3 challenges related to the Anthropocene scenario that can be stimulating for us. So just for contextualization, I will present shortly these 3 challenges, and then I will illustrate from some design and artistic projects how we can organize and articulate the challenges with possibilities. So the first challenge is I called unselling modernity. It is, of course, related to the impasse of modernity, which materialize itself in present forms such as capitalism, imperialism, neoliberalism, and colonialism. Of course, this is not a new issue. There is a compendium of work from social theory, which have been revealing a preoccupation, and also in design, with the segregation between the subject and the world. It is connection to discussions on postmodernism, the ontological turn. If you want to read about ontological turn, you can find a very beautiful work developed by a Brazilian anthropologist called Eduardo Viveiros de Castro. He specifically discussed on multiculturalism and his concept of perspectivism. Both are beautiful concepts. And also we can find in the literature of post-humanism and ecological paradigm and hybridism. So they are both connected to this comprehension of problems associated with modernism. These initiatives are committed to what it means by the end of modernity, which should not suggest that modernity has ended or ceased to affect how we live, but that modernity as a project has achieved its limits. It is clear that in the Anthropocene, the reference of modernity became unsettled. Between the subject and the world, Anthropocene opens a space of ontological and epistemological insecurity, as I mentioned before. This insecurity is illustrated by the floods in Porto Alegre, for instance, or Faenza, and many other catastrophes. They can be seen as an illustration of the increasing difficulty of distinguishing from human and non-human power or agency, anthropos and geos, culture and nature. The flood is simultaneously a disastrous incident at the center of an ecological dispute about whether the flood is anthropogenic or natural, and if derives from human or river, or the river in Porto Alegre, the case is the river agency. The responsibilities of the ruined landscape of the flood can't be seen as a simple dichotomy. It is attached historically to a set of practices and forces that involve industry, politics, nature, spirits, and their cosmology and immanences. So the second challenge is named Noticing Neglected Multiplicity. It is attached to the idea of lack of sensibility that avoid noticing the things our sensibilities are not trained to notice. This is somehow related to a form of optimism we have been embodying in the Anthropocene. This can be awkward, but optimism entails obscurity and blindness. Optimism can be seen as a doctrine that this world is the best possible world. Optimism avoids slowing down or hesitating, as I mentioned before, which means not being affected by the idioms pronounced within the situation. The impossibilities that come with optimism by being confronted with other forms of sensibility and curiosity. Curiosity is the apparatus that allows one to feel both the bad and the good. This allows for hesitation. Rose see the question of how we might frame the Anthropocene as a matter of how to live an ethic of kindship and care with multi-species. Hence, Anthropocene entails a problem of connectivity. This question is tied to Stenger's query about how to live with unexpected companies. Listening is not just about empathy, because empathy can separate me from the other, but material interdependence. The illness of another species can be considered our illness. We are mixed up in it together. The ill of the river is my own. If our digestive system is not mixed up with intestinal bacteria, it succumbs and fails to digest what we eat, for instance. Noticing requiring learning from the arrangement of multi-species. The last one, the last challenge, is creating new imaginaries. The Anthropocene serves as a turning point for the imagination of other futures and presents. Such a turn requires a social imaginary that opens the door for new ways of thinking and living. The term new imaginaries is evidently tied to a critique of modernity, but the reference of this new imaginary is not the one rooted in modernity. New imaginaries are not imaginaries that emerged in confrontation with the structure of modernity. This is not a matter of mirroring modernity in order to create its antagonist version, because this will be the same. Moreover, these imaginaries must occur on a vulnerable basis that transcend historicism. So remembering is not enough. Overcoming modernity requires more than a process of reappropriation of past cultures, as the rules involved in reappropriation suggest a universalism. Imagination is important as the Anthropocene needs distinct types of intensities whose parameters cannot be found in modern science. Asking for new imaginaries can be compared with Bruno Latour's metaphor of resetting modernity. Reset means to set again, or to begin from zero. Nonetheless, when you reset the machine that is not working properly, you only erase what stands on its surface, but the system that guaranteed the functionality of the machine is maintained. Its time axis is preserved, so resetting modernity involves traveling to a timeline toward the past in order to achieve the very moment before its functionality collapsed. The problem with such a procedure is that it entails historicism. The logic of the system will remain the same, being momentarily interrupted until we achieve the next breakdown. So now I will present these 3 projects. They somehow illustrate how design and art have been coping with this kind of a challenge. So here I start with illustrating with these 3 projects, but I will just describe this one. I don't know if you know about this project before, because the name is Into the Wild. It is Livia Staccini project. She investigated in 2019 a curious case in Rosignano, Solvay, Tuscany, Italy. How can I pronunciate the name of I'm sorry. But this is one of the most polluted coastal sites on Mediterranean Sea. Despite this undesirable condition, its beaches are considered a paradise and exotic place. attracting many people interested in its beautiful white sand and blue sea. These characteristics are the result of a chemical process involving sodium carbonate, which is produced by some soda factories, and it's released into the sea, altering the surrounding landscape and giving its paradisiac appearance. So the sand is white, the sea is blue because of these chemical components. People choose to visit the beaches not because the pollution is invisible, but because its visibility is manifested in the form of a reference to what is considered a beautiful beach. So this project is not exactly about how capitalism conceals its practices of devastation, but how it deforms devastation into an appealing scenario. The project is the left image, or yes, this image. It's an installation with a series of experiments to grow soda and salt crystals. Such experiments manifest the presence of a chemical process that is converted into the appearance of a beautiful environment. So here, considering the second challenge, the noticing neglected multiplicity, I will describe this project. This project is, the name is Equivalence, the Ecological Footprint of Fish. It was created by Chou and Li. They are both from China. And it reveals the culture of fishing in China. So the project consists of a mosaic of fish portraits that shows the large variety of species of small fish that are killed to sustain fish farming. So I don't know if it's easy to understand this composition. But the thing is, to obtain 1 kilogram of large yellow croaker, which is the biggest one, it's necessary 7 kilograms, 39 species, and more than 4,000 wild small fish. Each dead fish is photographed in a frame whose size would correspond to the size of the adult fish. So this square is the size that the fish is supposed to have when adult. The contrast between the size of the frame and the size of the small dead fish and the amount of extermination that is necessary to obtain 1 kilogram of large yellow croaker reveals the critical dimension of such practices. The morbid aesthetic of the putrefying fish related to the reference of the expectation of future, if the fish would grow until its adult life, reveals part of the cruelty and lack of responsibility tied to this form of exploitation. And the last challenge will be illustrated by this French project. Ce n'est pas un parc is related to creating new imaginaries. The speculative nature of this project is an invitation to think about other possibilities with regard to the interactions between species and environment. This multiple open space is not a representation of a defined version of the future. Instead, it is manifested as something to be completed, and a space to be completed, transformed, occupied, or created. It is totally open. Such continuity is not to be managed by humans, but to be conducted by the vicissitude of the situation. The vulnerability of the project guarantees room for new imaginaries. It unsettles the sense of utilitarianism frequently associated with public space, as the purpose of the space cannot be depicted by its functionality. It unsettles unity as the space that used to be considered an abandoned site, a place that is not being used, reveals the vivacity of its multiple inhabitants. Hence, it amplifies the discussion about utility as it questions which species has to be using a space in order to confirm that such space is being used. So, just some final thoughts. All the challenges have a grammar related to break, crack, rupture. Unsettling modernity, creating new imaginaries, noting differently, all require deviating from regularity. So the designer has to open frictional process, unsettling conventional practices and frameworks. Experimental adventure is a way of stimulating provocative narratives and discontinuity, operating a transcendental movement through speculation. It is impossible to understand such a scheme as a template for how to design in such challenging times, because every challenge has to be assessed as a situate challenge. So what I propose is a design that is dialectic, recursive, like considering myself in the situation as someone who modifies the situation. There's a beautiful discussion on ontological design that explain a little more how this dynamic occurs. Like I project the world and the world projects me back. A design that is creative, of course, disconnected from historicity, or not just repeating things that worked before, and sensible, like to other forms of knowledge and epistemology. Of course, such challenges have been affecting the research in design, but not essentially. We need more pragmatic institutional politics that aim to reverse the diminishing presence of critical studies and practices of design and designing in the design curriculum, for instance. Through experimental adventure, we can link crisis with other possibilities, deviating from casual linearity. By noticing the anomaly of the embodied crisis, we can intentionally elaborate futures and simulate diverse circumstances. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, now please feel very comfortable. If you want to open a discussion, we can also do this, or if you want to send questions.
Thanks. Ci sono domande già dalla platea? Nel frattempo che arrivano le domande, inizio io con una domanda in inglese per Guilherme. Guilherme, of course, thank you so much for this very inspiring contribution. That is a very good starting point also for our workshop of today and for the next days. I just have something to ask you more about different kind of futures that we can manage, that we can imagine when we design in a context like the one of strategic design and speculative design. You were saying, talking about adventure as a way to access new possibilities, that adventure in design is not futurology. So the kind of future that we can plan by working in such a way is not the future of a possible futurology. So maybe you can clarify for us the difference between these two different kinds of futures.
Yes, I think I can bring something for both questions at the same time. Yes, future is a concept very instigating. Everyone wants to know more about futures. So any field is interested in futures. But we have to remember that that time is just associated to present. So future is always a matter of imagination. We can only handle future through imagination. And we have to remember that it's always naive to think that we are able to consider what will be the future, because every time we think about future, we are based on the present references. So we are in fact thinking about the present because we are in the present. The references are in the present. The framework is in the present. We don't have nothing attached to this hypothetical future. So it is impossible to conceive the future. What we market has been doing is, or futurology, is try to understand the nature of transformations historically in order to achieve the probable future, because they have market interests. So of course they need to know more precisely what is probably going to happen. So this is not a future that interests design, because if we recognize ourselves in a critical moment, living in a critical present, if we recognize that we are in the Anthropocene, if the climate change is affecting us, we need to elaborate, to provoke. We need to create ruptures. So we cannot maintain the same pattern of transformation. So of course, recognizing how things have been changing is important, but we cannot use these as the main reference for the future. So the future has to be considered through imagination. That's why I think that speculative design is a good method to consider these different possibilities. It is more rich for design to elaborate something completely distant from usual references, even if this scenario does not correspond to how things have been happening, then produce something very organized based on the reference we are using. Yes, I don't think that design, in fact, is doing this. Like, I also teach in the BA and Masters and PhD, and it's very frequent among BA students, this preoccupation about their professional future. Like, I have to be hired. I want to deliver something for the client that is, like, my client has an expectation on me. So I cannot present a speculative future, a speculative design project disconnected from everything that the client is connected to. So I know that speculative design is a field that has to organize its own references. Like, when we are inside the university, we are in a very stimulating place, because here in the university, our role is related to how to elaborate, how to create new languages. So here is the place where we can create new values. So here we have to have this space for the creation of new narratives, new references, new forms of being and doing things.
Thanks a lot. It's fascinating how speculative design that could sound really maybe a little bit abstract or imaginative. It's really much more actually concrete, because it needs to be rooted in our own experience to provoke this kind of rupture and to produce something new. So very interesting perspective that we'll investigate together also during the workshop. Mi rivolgo in italiano alla platea. Se avete domande o curiosità, potete fare la domanda anche in italiano. Io cerco poi di tradurre a professor Meyer. È un'opportunità interessante iniziare già a discutere su questi temi. In ogni modo, quindi se avete idee, suggestioni, richieste, apriamo molto volentieri la discussione. Certo.
Perché non riproporre diciamo, il design passato o idee passate invece che proporre idee innovative che non si sa dove possono portare? Rispetto, cioè, mi sembra che nello speculative design si porti a dare nuovi concetti, nuovi immaginari che completamente differenti dal passato, dal presente, ma cioè, esatto, come mai e perché non riproporre aspetti, cioè valori passati o immaginari che richiamano il passato in un momento in cui questi problemi effettivamente non c'erano.
Provo, I'll try to translate. Why speculative design not just come back to the past, to come back to ancient values, maybe better values to rethink a new possible future, for example, thinking to climate change. We are now in a climate crisis. We are not facing something very difficult to manage. Why we are not just coming back to the past, but why we need a new rupture to think something new in the perspective of speculative design?
Yes, this is a very good question. What is your name? Thomas.
Thomas.
Nice, Thomas. Nice to meet you. It's a very good question because considering climate change and the Anthropocene and this ecological crisis, we can remember that in the past things were different. Like we used to have different kind of practices where everything runs well, so we could live without this ecological crisis, so to speak. But speculation is necessarily a practice that is not based on references. So you speculate when you allow yourself not to explain your speculation in terms of a foundation. So you just start speculating when you don't have to find rational reasons, established logics to explain what you are doing. If you do this, you can do this, but this is not speculation. If you explain what you are doing because of this and that, because of the past, because of the old references, you are doing something else. This can be welcome, but essentially, if we return and we don't modify the essence of what we are going to do, we probably will repeat things. Like consider we design something that organized the world now, and we suddenly are living again in the 40s. So let's consider that in the 40s we don't have this climate issue. Okay, so now we are in 40. But 60 years later, we probably will start facing the same problems we are facing now. Like if we just repeat, we are not changing things. We are just starting again. So the question that some scholars organize around Bruno Latour's argumentation, because I don't know if you know this anthropologist, this philosopher, Bruno Latour. He died something like 2 or 3 years ago. He's very good. He works with the concept of anthropology and technology and design. But he suggests something that you are suggesting, like reset modernity. Identify the first moment and reset, like start again. But the problem is this is related to this that I'm trying to explain. So we reset the data, but the machinery, the structure, the machine will remain the same. So things are going to start again. So speculation is a way to not starting again, but starting differently. So this is not the same of you should not consider anything from the past. Like this consciousness is fundamental for design. We need to, because we are what we are because of the past. So we need to recognize this. We need to identify the values in the references we construct. This is not the same as constructing something new based essentially in these references. We can consider they are here in order to know how to deal with them. This can be very nuanced, but yes, I think it's a good question, and you can work in this direction, like trying to resume something related to the past. But a speculation is not about this kind of contrast, like I'm doing this kind of speculation because of this. So speculation is distant from this kind of processuality. Yes. Thank you.
So maybe we could say that a speculative design practice, a speculative design experience is a situated practice.
Yes.
So let's start here and now, thinking something new about this crisis, climate crisis, for example, in our case, Anthropocene. It could be a good summary?
Yes, but this is also unique comprehension. You can consider speculation from another basis, like some professors, I mentioned Nelson and Stolterman, and they suggest that design always starts with an undistinguished situation, like something totally open. I disagree with this, and also the Vieira Pinto, the philosopher, the Brazilian one that I mentioned, disagree as well, because he said that it only exists a situation if you restrict the situation. And restricting means you are in the situation. The situation is this one because I realize there are these people, this species, these artifacts, this period of time, this environment. So the design, in considering this argumentation, the design begins with the distinctive situation, like it's a situation that I identify as designer. So I think that speculation requires this kind of understanding, like I am a designer situated. So there are many implications in this situation. it is not a totally open situation. It's the situation I am able to work with. I have to recognize that I have my references because they will affect the way I will design. I can try to speculate, but I cannot be naive, and I am a totally blank thing, and I can operate from nothing. And I am working in a situation that is totally open, that is totally abstract. So it's necessary for the designer to recognize this kind of limitations as a way to move into the direction of a speculative project.
Very, very interesting. So in some way, situation is not something given, but it's already something that we received, and thanks to our perspective, to our bias, and that's because we need to break it and start again,
Yes.
thinking something new. Very interesting and also promising for all of us during the workshop.
Well, thank you so much for your lecture. It's very inspiring. I have a question about historicism and also on our students' question. So I understand that reference shouldn't be taken from the past if we want this disruptive effect on, I mean, if we want a disruptive action towards new creations. But what about dominant historicism, dominant narratives versus old narratives or old practices, but that were not dominant? For example, indigenous practices or vernacular practices that were not inscribed in the dominant historicism.
Do you want to comment your opinion on?
No, I wanted to ask
Yes.
your opinion on this.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
I think that my answer is related to the one that I gave to Thomas. Of course, this kind of situated knowledge is fundamental to design. My research is, I was explaining to Valentina yesterday, is related to indigenous knowledge and traditional ecological knowledge. So I recognize the value of these practices. But what I was arguing is that in terms of speculation, of course, any kind of knowledge, it's relevant for a design project because I can be affected by this kind of knowledge as a designer. And being affected, I mean, I allow a transformation in my perspective. So this is a way of creating something new. So I think that any kind of information that new information that you are receiving is a potential way to transform yourself. And this is creativity. And also this is the problem with dominated knowledge. Because when you work with this dominated knowledge, you are not being transformed. Because you are always working with the same kind of reference. So this is not transformative. Like, I don't know if how many of you work with consultancy or work with clients, but in Brazil, for instance, we regularly deal with the problem of which kind of reference the clients are waiting for. Like which kind of expectation the clients have. Like when a client hire you and you are and present the briefing to you and you are discussing the possibilities of the project, it is very easy to identify what is the sense of innovation that this client have? Like, he is expecting a specific kind of innovation, which is very similar to how the other companies are innovating. So this is the dominant knowledge, like the same kind of innovation. So if I just present for this client the same kind of innovation, I'm not doing design. I'm not transforming anything. This is totally different as a project where I try to drink from another source of information, like traditional knowledge. So this will transform things. But the question of speculation is that speculation needs to be distant, or speculation, the speculative designer is moved through different directions. He's not attached, or she is not attached to any kind of reference. This is not a matter of speculation. So this is more conceptual. Like you can innovate. You probably only can innovate if you use this kind of that peculiar knowledge than the dominant one. But you can innovation is not necessarily the same of speculation. You can transform things and not work through speculation. So what I was mentioning is that speculation requires a different set of procedurals and methods, and I don't know if I answered, but
Yes.
but it's a very interesting question. Yes, I don't know your thoughts, Laura, on. I don't know your thoughts on this subject. If you want to.
Yeah, we can talk later.
Okay.
With pleasure.
You don't have a question?
No, sorry.
Domande, curiosità, è un'opportunità avere qui Guilherme, quindi approfitterei anche con pensieri, commenti e esempi.
You can also
Prometto.
write to me later if you want to. My
ok.
contact's here, so if you want to write to me.
Of course.
Nice.
Scrivete pure a Guilherme se avete.
I have a question about Anthropocene, because we discussed during our course of sociology this semester, and it's not clear what is Anthropocene, because it's a word we invented like some decades ago, and is new, and is not real at all, like it's real for humans and just for some part of humans, because if you ask to geologists, as they say, it is not real yet. And so I think it's important also to describe this word well, like Anthropocene, for who, and why we are using this word, and using this word what we want to do. And I don't know, is for me, like, is the problem is we are doing too much. So Anthropocene is a matter of entropy. So my thought about it is like, maybe in the future we need to start to doing less, and to change the thing. So I want to know what you think about the Anthropocene, like the word. What's your opinion about it?
You mean about the concept of the idea of Anthropocene?
Yeah, and think about the word Anthropocene. we put ourselves on the center of the problem, but it's not true. Like we are here, and the world is spinning anyway. Also, if you're not here, so it's just a problem for us and for animals. But for animals are doing well. Also, they are changing. It's a problem for us, and in a way we perceive in this world now. So we want good stuff. We want to do some kind of experience, and we are ruining the planet for this topic. I don't know.
Yes. Tell me if I answer your question, but the idea of Anthropocene is it reminds us about this paradoxical situation, considering the human agency, how the human act, because in the Anthropocene, you know that the Anthropocene is this concept that considered that the Earth is geologically changing because of the human activity. So for the first time, because we are in fact in Holocene, but any kind of modification considering eras was made by natural forces. And Anthropocene suggests that for the first time, the Earth is geologically being modified by a different kind of force, which is the human one. So, it is paradoxical because, like, the Anthropocene is paradoxical in many terms. One of them is that the human was the one responsible for modifying Earth in this way, like damaging things. But the human is the only species that can create new languages, new forms of living and being related, and new forms of relationships. So in the Anthropocene, the human has this double role, like a victim and villain. So this is very much paradoxical. The problem is that when we find ourselves in situations, in the Anthropocene situations like the COVID-19, we start realizing that we are not able to solve things. Like I remember feeling this as a person during COVID-19. I don't know if you experienced the same, because we always thought when humanity really wants to resolve a problem, to arrange things, it will do. Like humanity can do this, like politicians, scientists. But during COVID, we realized this is not going to happen. We really wanted to resolve things related to COVID-19, but we could not. We struggle. We still are struggling. And with the climate change is the same. So I don't know if you mentioned the relation between the human and other species, but I see that one of the challenges is related to how to give space for other forms of knowledges, for other species to express, to live, to teach us on how to live differently. But we as humanity don't seem very preoccupied in organizing these spaces. Like we are instead seeing humanity moving in a different direction, in fact. So this is very much problematic. Like considering the climate change, if the Earth continue in this direction, of course, we probably will face real problems soon. We are still facing, but yes, you know. What is her name? What?
Angelo. Angelo.
Angelo. Nice to meet you.
C'era una domanda laggiù, da quella parte. Avevo visto una manina alzata. Grazie. Certo.
So it's really exciting to hear about speculative design as a matter of situating ourselves, positioning ourselves, and be the protagonist of change. But I wonder, on one hand, there's things you can do, and on the other hand is resistance, because like well, the social, political, geopolitical situation now is very, very well, scary. So how do we incorporate resistance in our practice as designers and creators?
You can help me to answer this one. Yes, persistence, I think is a good concept. You know that the famous Papanek book, The Design for the Real World, he said that many, I don't know how to translate into English, but many professions do bad things to the earth, but probably design is one of the worst. So in this, this was the 70s. In this sense, if design doesn't do anything, it'll be better than doing the things that it has been doing. So yes, persistence is a concept. I don't know how to frame this. It seems a very rich idea to discuss about it. Persistence is.
Sorry, I maybe there's a bad audio here. I said resistance.
Resistance.
Yes.
Okay, to resist.
Resist against.
Yes. Yes, but resist is not enough. Like considering what is design for. Design is not just a field of resistance. Of course, resistance is huge. Like how to resist in times of this kind of political violence and violence, and so resisting is enough for other fields, but design is a field of transformation. If you don't change the situation into preferred one in better situations, if you don't change the world into better realities, you are not doing design. So maybe resist can be considered design in a sense that things are always changing. So if you stop changing and you resist, you are inaugurating a different way of transform things, like maintaining things the way they are. But resist, I think, as a concept is more, it is fascinating though, but it is a concept more related to permanence, to like I resist, I will not be affected, so I keep the things running the way they are running, or how they already are. I don't know. We can maybe discuss more. It is an interesting concept, like resistance. I know that design is very close to sustainability. So resistance can be associated with sustainability as like sustaining. You are resisting in a way that like the environment is resisting, so it is sustaining. But I know that many design practitioners and scholars have been struggling with the concept of sustainability, as sustainability is not enough. We need to regenerate. We need to recover things. So we need to produce differently. We need to affect. We cannot just maintain. We cannot just sustain. We have to interfere. Yes, I don't know. We can discuss if etymologically resistance occupies the same scope of sustainability, and what is the implication of only resist, only, not just only, of course, but what is the implication of resist but not change? Resist but not regenerate. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Resist your maintain your position against governmental agencies or any interferences from resistance against capitalism, for example. So can we really transform if we cannot resist from capitalism agencies?
Yes, maybe in this sense, resistance as a form of ethic. Yes, I think that's a very powerful idea, in fact. But yes, I don't know if this is enough in terms of design, although it's a lot.
Maybe, Laura, you were thinking to a possible way to resist the imperant stasis of politics and capitalism aims as for climate change. Maybe because current storytelling about climate crisis is that actually maybe it's not a crisis, maybe it's just bad weather, maybe we don't need climate data. I was thinking to US agency quite stopped in collecting data about climate change. So as it was a thing that we don't need to discover, because actually we don't need to have such news. It's just bad weather is just the standard way of living here. I was thinking to Trump politics. So maybe design and speculative design here, right now, is a way to disrupt all that. So to ask us, let's rethink at all that as a real crisis. Let's rethink as all that to a real thing to consider and to manage. My impression is that we are living in a sort of climate change stasis at the moment. So something that we don't need to consider, something that we don't need to manage, because actually it doesn't exist. Of course,
Yes.
Of course, I believe the opposite, but my impression is that the general media discourse is actually is not something real. How can we face all that from a critical point of view?
Yes, I mentioned something about it. I think that we have to create spaces and forms in order to be surprised by this kind of regularity. So when we face for the first time the first flood in Porto Alegre, every city, every citizen, every politician were affected. Like, but the floods start repeating, and again, and every year is the same. So now the community is not affected in the same way. So it is something very regular. It became obscure, transparent. You can't see anymore this kind of issue as an issue, as a problem. It's something that it is occurring, like the problems with war, like we saw last week the attacks from like Trump and Iran. So this is the first impression is devastating, but then every week is the same. So this issue stop affecting us in a way that we will really be affected and changed. And so I think that design is pretty much about how to unsettle this kind of maintenance. Like how can we learn how to notice this kind of thing? We are not trained for it. We are trained instead for not realizing this. Like in this room, no one is considering everything that is happening here. No one thought here now about the projection or the air conditioner, but everything is happening here. But when we enter, if you enter many times in this room, and in this kind of activity, like lecture sessions, you stop realizing everything. Things become transparent. It is not an issue anymore. But it's fascinating because if somehow the projection stops working, everybody is remember, oh, there is an equipment, there is a technical guy who has to be called in order to fix everything. Maybe it requires power supply or some cables or, I don't know, lights or... So, but we are preparing this way, like a society. We tend to reduce things. So, and it is the same with crisis. So the thing is that the crisis is not something to be preoccupied anymore. I agree with you, because we are all, every day we are facing the same kind of issue. They are very similar. They are huge, but they are similar. So we stop seeing them.
Very interesting. And actually a crisis repeating itself again, it's something that become a new tradition, a new normality. And so we need something new to break all that in pieces and to start again, see something.
Yes, I can ask you all to elaborate now a new projection, a new equipment for projection.
Yeah.
Something that anyone entered this room and what is this?
What's happening now?
So this is provocative. This will remind you that it is necessary, and equipment and people involved with this in order to receive this projection here.
Yeah, of course. Yes, it's a way to take a look at what happens behind the curtains.
Yes.
The roots of what we consider standard and normal, but actually it's something that we need to notice and work on. Domande, curiosità, io chiedo sempre. Certamente.
Faccio in italiano, poi se mi puoi aiutare. E il tema era questo, no? Abbiamo ascoltato e capito quanto il fatto che sia situato sia importante, no? E quindi come lo speculative design come strumento possa essere appunto un'apertura a nuovi immaginari. La mia domanda è che siamo comunque abituati a seguire processi che sono appunto data driven, che devono portare anche a una creazione di dati che possano essere verificati e che possano avere anche un riconoscimento scientifico. La mia domanda è come possiamo effettivamente dare valore a questi insight che provengono dalle speculazioni e dagli immaginari futuri e come renderli utili, ad esempio, all'interno delle politiche di adattamento al cambiamento climatico, perché sicuramente possono essere degli insight interessanti per dare un indirizzo anche a questi tipi di politiche, perché poi l'adattamento è un po' quello che ci permette di resistere e di esistere all'interno di questa crisi.
I try to translate a little the question of our guest, Riccardo.
What is your name? Riccardo.
Riccardo. So, if I well understood, we are talking a lot about data-driven design. So let's collect data and let's use it to design something data-based, but at the same time to face climate change, the speculative design approach is crucially important because we need to provoke crisis, but also we need to rethink. We can find ways to mix together data-driven approach design and speculative design approach.
Yes.
Policy, of course, because we need a sort of translation in trying to be a sort of orientation of our
Yes. Yes, it's a very good understanding. I think you can organize a project around these two perspectives, like data-driven design and speculative design. In fact, there are some initiatives that do this kind of work. I'm trying to remember, but there is an Italian design officer that work with it's not graphic, informational design of I will remember the name and I say to you. But there is an officer here in Italy and New York, I think. But they work exactly with this. Like they collect data, they organize data in a speculative way, and their aim is to provoke. So they organize data in a way that the society will face this data and be shocked. But so we can understand this as a way to organize, using data and speculative design as a way to touch like communities and produce new policies and but I think this is very important. You can speculate, but your speculation needs to be achieved by someone else. There is no value on a speculative project that remains only in a exhibition or for a very specific public that is regularly a public that is already more prepared for transformations. Like if someone go to a gallery or someone is interested by art, usually is people that are more available for thinking differently. And these places, these galleries, these specific places usually are the places that receive this kind of a speculative design project, an artistic speculative one. So this is a huge challenge, like how to translate a speculative design project in a way that it can really touch society. So maybe data-driven design is a way to combine this. Yes, accurate, yes. Yes, yes. One of the projects is related exactly to data and Anthropocene. Yes, it's accurate.
Today, it's of course at the same time totally database, but actually it's not classic data visualization in which you find tools to interpret, to manage data. It's a way to produce a flow of data that first of all wants to involve you, considering how much our multi-layer human parts convert and how it affects everything. So, of course, it's not a database, but it's impossible to think in the data visualization terms. It's a very powerful example.
Yes, and it's hard to describe the project without the images, but it is this one. It's speculative in terms that is not just presenting data in a linear manner. So they struggle on the how can we affect people presenting these multi-perspectives around data. So this is speculative. They were not based on conventional references on how to present historical data, which usually is linear, for instance. So the room of change, yes. Yes, that's it. And it's beautiful. It's huge. It's huge and beautiful. Yes. Oh, that's.
It's a very powerful example of how we can manage data, not just in an informative way, but also in a much more expressive way, building an article, able to involve our viewer, observer in a different way. And actually, I agree with you. It's a very speculative design perspective.
Yes.
I did not consider that speculative, but actually it is. It's a challenging way to reconsider what it's just data, and it's not.
Yes.
Questions for our very special guest? Maybe we can just say thank you and see you later.
Yes.
Thanks a lot.
It was my pleasure. Thank you very much.